It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a weekly podcast where we talk about everything that's great. Like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris.
And my name's Michael.
Are we doing long names here? Because
long form, Christopher.
Yeah, I don't like that. My middle name's also Michael, so I feel a little targeted here, but that's fine. This week we've got the first official cast list for Avengers Doomsday. After rumors aside, we have official list here and surprises. Mike, I want to talk to you about the surprises we got during this trailer. Or I guess is it a trailer? A 5.5 hour teaser, if you will. Either way, Andor's final trailer promises us a rebellion, Mike. That's coming around the corner next month. Well, it'll be April on Tuesday. April Fool's Day is this week. People, don't believe the internet. That's my. I'm gonna say that a couple times.
I feel like we've moved into an era of society where that should just be every day of the week. Don't believe the internet. So
it's true. But more importantly for pop culture things on April 1st. The Legend of Zelda arrives in 2027 officially, and more.
Yeah, it's funny. I knew the Legend of Zelda was announced not because I looked at our show notes, but because I saw somebody post. It's funny that this was announced so close to April 1st because there's been like a Zelda movies like pranked on us.
IGN did one for like years, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I find that pretty fun.
Yeah,
but I was gonna pitch that everybody go subscribe to this little niche streaming service at the top of their show called Apple TV. If you haven't heard of it, it's a streaming service where they're throwing insane amounts of money at creators, and they tend to have the best batting average out there of all the streamers right now. I say this because a new show just dropped right after Severance's finale a week ago, so they understand that they're trying to keep people from turning off this service. But it's called The Studio, from Seth Rogen and his whole creative team. He stars in it as well, where he gets promoted to the head of a fictitious Hollywood studio, and how does he run it, and just the trials and tribulations of being the top dog in an industry that in the first episode wants him to greenlight and make a Kool-Aid Man movie. But it's hilarious. Chris, I told you to watch it like the day after we binged the first 2 episodes back to back. But it's just really good. It's really smart. I don't really know where the culture is right now with Seth Rogen, but I've always liked his work. I don't think I've ever really wavered on his type of humor and comedy. I've always liked the guy.
Yeah, well, he's also part of Invincible, right? The cartoon that just it's firing on all cylinders. He did Preacher, a bunch of other stuff. So absolutely, like he's got a lot of hits right now.
Yeah, I'm just checking real quick to make sure it's not in the notes. Okay, it's not. Yeah, he also is making a Darkwing Duck return to Disney Plus. I don't know in what. I'm sure it's just kind of like an executive produced type thing where he's just overseeing like the creator that he's putting in there, but his team is working on that. So all love to Seth Rogen, but shout out to the second episode of The Studio is all about the concept of the oneer, one continuous shot that never breaks. So it's about him going to visit a set that's about to shoot a oneer at golden hour, but the entire episode itself of The Studio is shot as a oneer. So it's this kind of like meta, hilarious train wreck. So you got to go watch The Studio on Apple Plus. Now is a really good time.
Well, the point of that one was also that Seth Rogen on an interview before you told me to watch this, I saw he's like, we did that so when Apple was giving feedback, we were like, we can't change it because it's one shot. Like it's not like a fake one shot or long shot. It's a real long shot where they were like, hey, Apple has these notes. They want to change. Like, well, we can't do that because it's already in there. It's already done. We can't edit a long shot, like that. So he's like, it was kind of a funny way to kind of beat back on some of their notes throughout that as well, which I thought was a funny take, because that seems like Seth Rogen. Like, he's like, yeah, I'll probably, I'll work with studios, but like, he doesn't.
He's like
he can kind of do what he wants too.
Yeah, he's really in this sweet spot of his career right now, where hopefully he still remains funny and creative for the rest of his career, but he's still funny and creative, but also has influence and pull in Hollywood, where he can basically do what he wants and pull in actors and cameos, and he has probably tons of favors across town. So like right now, I feel like he's living it up. He has that side business where he sells like weed and like ashtrays and stuff, like luxury ashtrays. So yeah, anyway, go check out the studio. It's really great.
I was also looking at, because you said the Darkwing Duck. I was like, I'm pretty sure Seth Rogen had some part in Chip and Dale, that movie, a couple years ago as well, but he was just a voice actor in it. I was like, because I was like, well, maybe he produced it, but it was the Lonely Island guys who kind of pushed that one along. Because I was like, man, that sounds familiar. But yeah, no, I don't have that. But we do have something else to talk about, Apple TV Plus later, which I will rely on your knowledge for in the show notes. So
okay,
we'll talk about that. But let's start off here. We mentioned top show Legend of Zelda. So Nintendo had a direct this week, which is where they talk about some upcoming stuff. And this one's an interesting Nintendo Direct this week, Mike, because number one, there's an item in here. In our bullet notes it added a comic book related video game coming out. But also, this is the last like Nintendo Direct before the Switch 2 Direct, which is next week. So everyone's like, oh my God, they're going to put Switch 2 stuff in here. They didn't. This is just regular stuff. But Nintendo launched an app for phones that's like a Nintendo News app. Where you're supposed to like log in and like you can get all your news from Nintendo directly from Nintendo in this news app, which I don't think I'm opening up a Nintendo app every day or even every week, Mike, to get my news. I'm just going to rely on where I get all my other news at to begin with. But the first thing they announced was The Legend of Zelda in it, which was funny.
Well, and I just hear about that from anybody else that runs a news or a social media handle. Nintendo's always weird. It's just like, I feels like somebody got the directive of like, we need an app that people check frequently. We need like daily active users, but we don't want to make any video games on a phone. I know they have in the past, but they don't really want to do that. It feels like they're always doing it because they have to just be in the app store in some way. So like, let's make a news app. Like, okay.
Well, they have a couple, like obviously, I think some Pokemon. There was Mario Run. They've had a couple over the years, but like I said, they don't do that because what does Nintendo do, Mike? They sell hardware, and they sell software for their hardware, specifically their own hardware. So it's very interesting whenever they kind of delve out here. It reminds me of like Apple in the 90s for some reason. Like whenever I think about Nintendo today, because it's like not really what you'd expect from a company of that size and stature along the way. You're a big fan of the Alarmo, like the Mario alarm clock that they announced like
it's
last
just
year.
Fun. And
yeah,
and honestly, that is kind of nice with everything being so predictable out there in the world. At some point in time, capitalism just becomes formulaic, where at some point in time, the company needs to do X, Y, and Z to maximize profit. Just Nintendo always keeps it interesting. You never know what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
And even if you don't like what they're doing, at least you never expected it.
Well,
so at least that's fun.
And
that's
I feel
fun
like
to me.
they go all in too. That's the thing, right? They don't like, they may dip their toes in it, but it's always like, hey, we're gonna put our best foot forward in like our best toes forward into the water, if you will, because like I'm sure this Nintendo News app is awesome. I bet it looks great, but it's beautiful, full of branding, full of stuff like that. But like, obviously I'm not of the people. I'm not a Nintendo diehard fan. My Switch hasn't been turned on in a very long time. But they've always done really, really interesting stuff. I was talking about retro video games to you before the show, Mike. One of the Nintendo things that I always talk about is my Virtual Boy, because like, remember when they tried to do VR and headsets before VR and headsets were cool? In the 90s, and it didn't work out for them, but they're always doing something maybe a little ahead of time. But The Legend of Zelda, the live action movie, was announced I think last year or 2 years ago, right after Super Mario Brothers came out, the animated one, and they were like, this is great, we made a bunch of money, we're going to work with sadly Avi Arad to make Legend of Zelda the live action movie. And they've given us a release date of March 26th 2027. So we are. I was like, oh, that's really far away. Then I realized we're 2 years out, Mike. Like this is literally 2 years away. Before we get a live action Zelda. So my assumption is we're probably going to be getting some casting pretty soon, some characters. Who's Jack Black going to play in this movie, Mike?
Yeah, really. I just am already anticipating the discourse that's going to last for months the second that Link in the trailer speaks a word, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll probably get casting announcements of like Chris Pratt is Link, and everyone is going to like, they'll either be happy. Everyone will have like a hot take of like, oh well, you know, it makes sense that Link doesn't talk in the games because he's your character and you're playing it from his POV. But now we're watching it, and I don't know. I feel like I'm too. I feel like I'm too old to dive into the nuances of this.
Well, I am interested simply because you know there's what Tears of the Kingdom, and what was the other newest game here on Switch?
Breath
of the Wild. Yeah, so like I'm interested, like, you know, how many kids 10 and under have played those games and have the Legend of Zelda affinity. This is where I want to show my cards. I've only played the first 2 Zelda games, Mike, the very first 2 on regular Nintendo, Legend of Zelda and Adventures of Link. Not played the other ones, not because I don't want to, just really never had an opportunity to and never had that affinity for it. But I will say the one thing that gets me every time is that Legend, like that intro song, whenever you put in that game. I love the music. You know, there's a lot of different Zelda games, a lot of different affinities, but like, I'm curious how they're going to bring kids, new people into Zelda that have never actually touched on it before. Kind of like how, you know, we talked about Mario, right? Like, you know, kids see Mario and Yoshi, Donkey Kong, but like, what games are they playing at that age? To kind of get them in there.
It's like, I know every feature animated film is always compared in some way to Spider-Verse, which gets a little tiring. But to do it again, it seems like this film is going to have to take a somewhat serious approach, just because like Link is a very serious character. But obviously you're gonna have it's gonna be, what do they call that, like a 4-quadrant film? I think that's what they're going for here. Like if this doesn't make $1 billion, I'm sure somebody's over there is gonna be sad.
Well, yeah, maybe. I think the Japanese have a different idea on their IP. They have a quality kind of thing. So I'm interested to see what it takes. Like, is this gonna be like an intro, like a you know, an origin movie? So I'm like, is it an origin story for Link? Is it going to follow one of the games? Obviously, because, again, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are so huge. You know, which timeline Link is it going to take? Young Link, older, or adult Link? I'm interested. I'm curious. To have my curiosity. I also want to note that this is opening literally a week after Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which is March 19th, 2027. So if you played video games in the early 90s, by God, this is the month for you in a couple years for this. So yeah, interested to see what they do with that, and we'll keep you guys posted as more comes out. I'm gonna be honest, in terms of Nintendo, before we swap it up, Mike, I'm excited for the Switch too. I don't know if you had the same hype. I know, you know, you have a Switch, right? And I don't know how often you played as much, but like the to use a controller as a mouse in some of those games looked kind of cool. I was like, okay, this seems like a very versatile console. Along the way. And I love Mario Kart. You know, we talked about that along the way. Anything else on Zelda, Mike, before we swap it over?
No, I think that's good for me.
All right, well, that's our Nintendo news. Moving on, Netflix announced a live-action Scooby Doo series coming from Berlanti Productions, and I'll be honest, I'm not surprised. Number one, because Warner Brothers is literally licensing out everything that they don't want to touch anymore, right? Because I'm pretty sure Scooby Doo was under WB with not Velma? Was it Velma? The
animated Mindy Kaling show.
Yeah, that was. I think it was on Max, right? That, you know, where it got beat to bloody pulp over. But they are doing an 8-episode live action series. Here's a synopsis. Going to read through it just real fast. During their final summer at camp, old friends Shaggy and Daphne get embroiled in a haunting mystery surrounding a lonely lost Great Dane puppy that may have been a witness to a supernatural murder. Together with the pragmatic and scientific townie Velma and the strange but ever so handsome new kid Freddy, they set out to solve the cases, pulling each of them into a creepy nightmare that threatens to expose all of their secrets. Tonally, people are like, this is probably Riverdale. Is what the news reports are from Berlanti, who I think did he do Riverdale as well in CW?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
it sounds like they're gonna be doing some real weird stuff, real kind of like supernatural, scary, serious stuff. I do want to know how they're gonna handle Scooby Doo in this situation, Mike. Right? Like, is it gonna be
Yes.
like James Gunn's Scooby Doo live action that people are very fond of, or are they going to just make it a dog that doesn't really talk, or has voiceover language? What do you think?
It's funny. I really wonder. This seems kind of like the argument you have a lot in Hollywood when it comes to budgets. Like, what is cheaper, having an animal on set every day, or doing it in post, like in a CG dog style? I mean, that there was that whole Harrison Ford movie, right, where they made the dog entirely CG. Because I know working with animals is tough. I heard from somebody once that works out here that's why you don't see a whole lot of cats in television, because there's just not as many to cast out there, and they're harder to train.
As a cat owner, I can attest to this. But also, like, the only cat shots you ever see, they're just sitting on a counter looking curious, and then they just jump off the counter. Like, every cat shot in every movie, that's what you get out of it. So, absolutely with that.
Yeah, I mean, I could see, like, if they're really trying to shift the tone and go very crazy, like they did with Riverdale, which was absolutely nothing like
The Archie comics it was based on.
Yeah, I could see them maybe having like a character that's like a medium, or like has some sort of like unexplained power where they can talk to animals, and maybe they're the ones that kind of talks for Scooby Doo, the dog. So that could be a possibility, but. Yeah, I can't imagine I'm gonna see like a mouth flap, right?
Right, yeah.
Like they're gonna animate the dog talking, or maybe the dog, since this is all about ghosts and stuff. Maybe the dog, like maybe the dog gets its own powers and can telepathically communicate with the mystery the mystery gang. Is that what they're called?
Well, the Mystery Machine is the name of the car. I think they're just the gang, isn't it, right?
What are they called?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't care that much.
And I would say, like, I grew up watching the different Scooby Doos, the originals, the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo. Mike, I don't know if you remember that one season. What was it? What was the Scooby Doo Kids, Young Scooby Doo, or whatever it was, where they were like kids in a neighborhood, like with a treehouse kind of thing. I liked all of them. It's fine. I'm not. This is not for me. But I'm curious what they're gonna do with it, because it says they expose all of their secrets. What secrets are these kids hiding, and how many seasons is Netflix gonna milk this for along the way? So, I've not heard a lot out of Greg Berlanti since the CW wrapped up. I know he was mad about the DCU taking over and kind of quote unquote killing his series, but like. As a producer, like, he's just mad. Probably they're not getting much money from it anymore.
Well, also he's been kind of the victim too of the industry kind of axing these gigantic overall deals for show creators. I think they're starting to realize. I mean, J.J. Abrams is always one that people point to of all the money that was thrown towards him, and they really didn't get that much out of him. So I think Hollywood has discovered, okay, maybe we don't bet so much on one singular person making a dozen TV shows.
I don't think he did a bad job with that. I think the cost of doing superhero shows really kind of ballooned for the CW. How many were there? There was like 8 at once he had going on. But looking up what he's been up to lately, he produced that movie Atlas last year with Simu Liu and Jennifer Lopez. About the robots. He produced it, and he directed Fly Me to the Moon, which was the Channing Tatum, Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, I remember
comedy drama
about that.
So he's been doing some stuff, not necessarily TV. Kind of looking up his TV stuff here. EP. I don't care about executive producer. I was looking more at just producer creator. Superman and Lois was the last thing that wrapped up for him, so that we could tell there. But yeah. Oh, and You. He did that show You on Netflix. So he does have a working relationship with Netflix. So this makes sense. But yeah, if you're into Scooby-Doo, guess what? You're going to be getting some stuff from Netflix next year. They're mining some very interesting properties out of this stuff. What I would like to see, Mike, and this is completely unrelated, but kind of reminds me of the era of Scooby-Doo, and this is the Hanna-Barbera era, is like, what if you had a live-action Space Ghost series on Netflix? Like, the weird cartoons Hanna-Barbera used to show, like, after, like, they were kind of done with the Flintstones, but before, like, Space Ghost would be pretty cool, I think, to see in a Netflix universe. It's so weird.
Mystery Inc.
There you go.
There we go.
You didn't care so much you had to look it up.
Exactly.
But yes, the Mystery Machine, obviously the thing. So, and obviously the theme song for Scooby Doo is so iconic as well. I'd be interested to see how they modernize that along the way. Probably get like the Offspring or some punk band from the early 2000s to do a cover of it along the way. Moving on, Superman. So this is spoiler territory. I'm just going to say this is spoiler territory, even though it's all over the news. So there's been some more screenings for this movie. They have to get it right, Mike. They are doing probably way more screenings than any other movie that a studio would do. Right? They want to make sure they land when this movie drops in July. And the actor who will play Jor-El has been revealed from these previews, from people who watch these. It's online. So I was trying not to like put it in here, but like Mike, you said you came across it already. So I'm just going to go ahead and say this is spoiler territory. So if you want to do this, we have time codes in the show notes to skip ahead. Long story short, another James Gunn actor he has worked with several times, Bradley Cooper, will be Jor-El in the upcoming Superman movie at the intro. It says it's not very, very, very long time, but I don't know how much homage they're going to do to the Marlon Brando stuff where he goes back, or even what was it, Man of Steel, right, where they talks to him in the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, to me this is kind of, I know the Fortress of Solitude could technically mean his casting could exist longer than his actual life. Does this indicate we're getting like a flashback to establish the beginning of the movie, how he gets to the Earth? I don't know.
Yeah.
But to me, the casting, I don't really care so much about. I mean, Jor-El has been relatively inconsequential to the Superman stories that I've watched. Obviously, he's important because he's Superman's father, but
and sends him away, but yeah.
Like narratively wise, like, I don't really care who's cast. It's almost kind of like, who are they going to cast as Uncle Ben and whatever next Spider-Man franchise? It's just like, well, he's going to die anyway.
Well, surprisingly, Marvel Left him out. We don't even have an Uncle Ben along that thing. But yeah, but also it's Bradley Cooper. Like, he's like one of those actors. I'm like, I love him as a cameo. Do you watch Dungeons and Dragons by chance? Like when he was like
he was the short.
Yeah, he showed up as a little person to Michelle Rodriguez Big One. Like I love that. Like he's just come such a far way to just kind of show up when he wants to and be what he does. Right. Like I love that about him. And obviously working with James Gunn from Guardians of the Galaxy because he was the voice of Rocket. Just the usual suspects along the way, Mike. Which is cool. Like I said, doesn't matter in the long scheme of things, right? I don't think it's going to affect the Superman movie, but it is a fun cameo that they're going to kick off with in there. It's like watching Star Trek from 2009 and going back and like, oh my gosh, that's Chris Hemsworth at the beginning of the movie being Spock's dad before people realized he was going to be Thor all those years ago. All right, spoilers over. That's the DC news for this week. So we're going to shift into Star Wars news. Because Andor is next, and we got the final trailer. They're calling it the final trailer for Andor coming up on Disney Plus. Mike, this is the trailer I wanted last time. I mentioned that I didn't like the weird pop music or I guess alternative rock over that. I wanted something serious, something a little more Star Wars. This is the trailer I want. This has that Star Destroyer alarm from like the first movies, right? Like kind of going over everything, really setting the stakes, the tone, the seriousness of this. I'm glad to be back. How do you feel? I know you just watched it before the show.
I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've watched Rogue One. But is the very first kind of set piece in Rogue One of them rescuing Jen Erso from like a police motorcade or something like that?
Yeah, because I think she's like a resistance fighter, blows something up, they take her in, and then like they have to get her out. Yeah,
I'm really curious if like the last episode of Andor is gonna tee right into that scene.
It will not
of that
because there's before that we see Andor on another planet doing a heist, remember, and he has to shoot the guy in cold blood before he gets the call to go get Jen. So I think we're gonna see that heist beforehand.
Well,
from Rogue
yeah,
One.
I'm not saying but I'm trying to think. Is the very last scene of season 2, which is the series finale of Andor, is that gonna tee right into Rogue One, just
Yeah.
as Rogue One tees right into A New Hope?
Yeah.
It would just be like a fun watching experience.
Well, no, I
just
agree.
a seamless transition.
Well, and I will tell you, when I watched Rogue One, and I still maintain this, Cassian Andor in Rogue One sucks when you don't know who he is. He's just a murderer, kind of like you don't understand his motives or nothing. He's just there. He's like kills the dude, cold blood, to kind of go on. So having all this backstory builds up to that. I would love to see him get to that moment, right, where he has to pull the trigger on the dude. I want to see that guy come back who he killed, and that meeting. I agree with you entirely. They should, but it won't be the big. It's before all that, the big rescue piece. But I really enjoy this. Seeing director Krennic come back, make a little cameo. This is a little more probably about the Death Star build than I thought it would be, if I'm going to be honest. They're really kind of pushing the Death Star in the background. Even though they didn't really mention it a lot in Star Wars beforehand, but that's fine with me. This feels like classic Star Wars, Mike. I don't know. It's hard to find words because there's so much going on here. We haven't been to Andor since 22, fall of 22, and we're coming back here. I will say this is where I'm going to do my PSA again, that this show is releasing weekly in 3-episode pods across April until we get to May the 4th weekend, which is Star Wars Celebration Japan this year. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that? The 3 pods at one night, Mike? Do you think
Is it 3 episodes? Is it 9 episodes a season?
No, there's 12. There's 12 here. There's 12. There's 12. There's 12 episodes for the season. So it's 4 weeks of 3 episodes releasing on Tuesdays.
It's a weird time to be somebody that watches television, because the studio, which I was talking about at the top of the show, released 2 episodes as its season premiere, right? But then there'll be other shows that premiere that they're doing one a week. And then we just wrapped up the season finale of Reacher this week. And then Amazon Prime was like, okay, well, we got to keep these dads engaged with their dad content. So then they brought back season 3 of Bosch Legacy, but they premiered that with 4 episodes, and that's an hour-long drama show. So I'm like, I don't even know what anyone. I don't know if they're just doing this all algorithmically. Part of me thinks it's schedule based as well. I texted you earlier this week. Randomly, I know it wasn't random, but because you told me it was planned ahead of time. But why were there 2 episodes of Daredevil this week? It was very confusing because the first episode of the 2-episode release of Daredevil is all around St. Patrick's Day.
Yep.
So if they would have done a double release the week before, that would have aired literally right after St. Patrick's Day. So I don't know. I don't understand it. Sometimes I think they're just trying to make sure that the shows end at a right time so another show can pick up. So this is a long-winded way of saying I have no idea what the strategy behind this.
I didn't ask you about the strategy. I guess the thing is 3 episodes on a Tuesday night, and then you're going to try to watch them before the next day and not be spoiled from this show, which we know Cassian lives and a couple other people make it to Rogue One. It's very interesting to do this. I know they're just trying to get it done before Star Wars Celebration. My guess is they have an announcement out of this. Hopefully it's not Andor, the prequel. But you know what I'm saying? It seems like they're just trying to get to Star Wars Celebration when it would be better off still doing the 1 episode a week. Now, I know when we watched it, we've talked about Andor whenever we finally caught up to it much later. We here in this house binged it, but you can tell where the 3-episode arcs are in Andor because they do the time jumps, right? And this is a 5-year time jump across 12 episodes. They're going to be covering 5 years. So I don't like where I'm going to have to just not look at the Andor articles on Wednesday because I've got to find some time to download or not download, but ingest 3 hours of Andor articles before the internet puts them online, I guess, which is really, really, really sucky. But that's why Daredevil had the two episodes. I didn't know the first one was St. Patrick's Day related, like I said, until you watched it. But at the same time, I'm like, that is weird they didn't do that literally the week before on St. Patrick's Day, right? It would be kind of inconsequential. So, and Amazon loves their 3-episode premiere. You know how they did it with The Boys as well. They did it with The Boys, and they did what was Invincible had what 1 or 2, maybe was it 3 drop at once. I don't know. It's weird. It's very, very interesting release schedule. It is, like you said, it's not the way it used to be. All at once, some at once, along the way. All right, let's jump into some Marvel news here for the back half of the show. First foremost, at the Nintendo Direct, they announced a new video game for Marvel called Marvel Cosmic Invasion. It's essentially a 16-bit side-scrolling beat 'em up in the veins of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles of the era, the Power Rangers game that just came out, Shredder's Revenge, which was recent. This is made by the same company that made Shredder's Revenge. Mike, I don't know if you've played that yet or not. I beat the hell out of the game. That game is so fun. It's like, if you want classic, old school, pixelated beat 'em up, this is it. But like, this game's cast is probably the most interesting thing for me because they call out very specifically Nova, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Phyla-Vell, and Captain America. But in the trailer, they also show Venom and Storm as playable characters as well. So I feel like this is like a game that's going to be getting unlockable characters and DLC characters for a very long time on this.
Yeah, these superhero franchises, I don't know if Warner Brothers doesn't do this as often just because I don't even know if they have their own video game studio anymore because I know they laid off a bunch of people. But it seems like with the Marvel formula, it's like, oh, you're a video game studio, you license the IP of Marvel, and then you've kind of unlocked just tons of possibility, right? Because you have all of these heroes that can be pretty interchangeable. You don't have to take all of them and put them all in your game, but you can pick the ones that fit your like gameplay mechanics really, really well, because all of these characters have their own fighting styles. And then also like exactly what you mentioned, the like the DLC later down the line. If you want to unlock heroes and keep people coming back to your game months after months, just drop new heroes. The only thing is there's always a cynical part of my brain that just goes like, oh, they only do this for as long as it's kind of like financially exciting for them. You know, it's not like, I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't feel like a fully fun crafted game is always being made. It seems like we're building a platform in which these characters can live. And then once they don't make money anymore, the game is abandoned. So, it would be cool if there was like a nice, really fun, engaging story to this, and then so you could just sit down and play it no matter what the live service option.
Well, that's what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is. There's no live service. I disagree with you that games don't need to be planned out to be supported for 10 years, especially like this. Like these side-scrolling beat 'em up games, like you can beat them in like 2 hours, and you kind of go through. The turtle one is great because you can level up the turtles as you play, and so you come back and like, oh, I leveled up Leonardo. You can play some more to level them up, go back and unlock different challenges and different hidden things in the levels. A lot of replayability in that story, and it's a very, very unique story. And they added other characters along the way, like from the movie. Some of the who are the geckos or like the toads or whatever. Like they're not turtles, but they're the other fighting amphibians that are in the comic books. Usagi Yojimbo, a couple other comic book crossovers. But what I like about this follows the Annihilation story. Like we've talked about Annihilation on that Nova series that has been made and canceled or changed around several times because Phyla-Vell and Nova are big from that. And we get like the ponytail version of Nova in this, which is like pure 90s Marvel with the ponytail look on that. And I think this team having the experience and the knowledge from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is going to make it even better. One of the things I wish it would have, which we were probably not guaranteed, it is crossplay, right? Like I want to buy this on my system and play with somebody else because this isn't a heavy lift game. Like this isn't, you're not getting 3D graphics and you're pinpointing everything all over the place. You're literally a very fixed screen kind of going back and forth. But fighting different colored bugs across New York, seeing Captain America's shield, Storm, Wolverine, Venom, just beating them up. I saw Hydra there at the end, 4-player co-op action. Like this is like how like games are. I really like these games. It's to be really, really cool. But like I can see them adding like a handful of other characters, like not like years down the road. But like hey, another year. Hey, we added some extra levels. Buy some extra levels. With some extra characters, some skins, stuff like that. I'm pretty stoked for this. And again, as I mentioned top show, in my playing a lot of my retro games, this just has that look, that feel that Super Nintendo has. If you ever played any of those, because there was a Captain America game for Sega Super Nintendo arcades. It's like Captain America and the Avengers that was like this, and you had like Captain America and the Vision, Hawkeye, and I forget who the fourth one was. It was another kind of obscure character, but I'm pretty stoked for this. I'm excited. I'm glad Nintendo dropped it here this week. We don't have a release date yet, but it will be pretty much on everything from Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox, and PC later this year. You can check out that trailer in our show notes. Keep closing these trailers. Annihilation Wave is good. Moving up, rumors are coming out this week, and I don't know whether we believe them or not, Mike, but Blade is the movie's on an indefinite hold until after the multiverse movies wrap up. I think we've talked about this before. Whenever I wrote this down, like, feels familiar, right? Blade isn't a multiverse movie. It has no effect on the multiverse. It doesn't need to come out before Avengers Secret Wars, right? It can wait. And
yeah, well, I mean, we pretty much have the slate of movies up through Secret Wars, so really anything is delayed until after all of that. So
I think there's one more movie in 25, November 26, November 26, that they've not said yet. So we might have one more movie, but I think that might be it if they put anything in there. Because Spider-Man is technically Sony and all that other fun stuff. But the other rumor is that Chad Stahelski, who is infamous for being the director of John Wick, is now the front runner for the director of the film. And I did look it up. For people to know, he actually served as the second unit director on Captain America: Civil War. So he did a lot of the second unit action scenes without the main actors along the way. So he has, I say, connections to Marvel, if you will, to do that if he wanted to.
It's funny to get a delayed rumor, but then also a front runner as director.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, this movie was supposed to be out already, if I remember right. So
yeah.
Every new day on the calendar is proof of a delay.
Yeah, and I just think they won't do November 26th. I think that'll be another movie. But if they launch one of the first movies after Secret Wars, X-Men and Blade, that would be a hell of a year. That would feel just like 2000 all over again.
It's true.
Getting X-Men and Blade, and honestly, John Wick, the action, the gunplay in that, with the gunplay and swordplay in Blade movie, I think that would be awesome to see someone with that kind of sensibility bringing that to a Blade movie along the way. So hopefully we get some more news. San Diego Comic-Con's coming up. Fantastic Four will have just been out, so Marvel will be done with their movies for the year. So maybe they'll be able to give us some insight into what's coming out in November next year. Also, another movie that has a targeted release date. Black Panther 3 is rumored to be targeting a February 2028 release date. So the first February after Secret Wars, the year after. And there is a February 18th slot that Marvel has dedicated to that. I checked that on our release schedule calendar. So this sounds pretty good.
I think the very first Black Panther movie was definitely either a February or March.
I think so. Yeah.
So it lives well within that month for them.
Yeah, exactly. And like we said last year, Denzel Washington says yes, they got a part of the movie for him. Oh my gosh, what's the director's name? Ryan Coogler. He's got his movie Sinners coming out, so he's doing interviews for that right now. So people are asking him about his Black Panther. So probably after his Sinners movie gets wrapped up, he'll probably be working towards Black Panther 3 to kind of do that. And I would love to see, honestly, if Secret Wars has any effect on Black Panther. Right? We talked about how adamantium may affect the vibranium trade in the world, but obviously, will there also be any other shakeups for Black Panther along the way in that? Moving on to Spider-Man, more Spider-Man rumors. I don't believe any Spider-Man rumors at this point, Mike, until we get some fucking actual news. But the rumors that possibly a character known as Lady Chameleon will be the villain, but she's not called Lady Chameleon. That's just like how we would refer to her as in the situation. In the Ultimate Comics, she is a sister of the original Chameleon, so very similar power set to that. And again, not the character Lady Chameleon, but the character of Chameleon was briefly seen in Kraven. If anyone watched that other than me, nope. Okay, just me. Got it. Very underutilized, very not comic accurate. And after all the other Spider-Man rumors, I'm just gonna say this is probably very unlikely to be real at this point. We do know they cast Sadie Sink. Tom Holland will return. They're looking at a female villain for the main role. If I don't see why they would bring in Chameleon like as a character, Mike. Like that seems like the least interesting person to be the villain here.
I think if Chameleon is a villain, it's probably like a support role, supporting villain. It'll be something larger, or it'll almost be like an A-B kind of storyline that intertwines throughout the film. That would be my guess.
Yeah, and I think like if they like I saw someone was like, oh, this should be great if they brought back also like the Shocker and Scorpion as the villains, right? And maybe this person was taking the faces of people Spider-Man had like fought in the past, but I definitely wouldn't put them as like, hey, this is the big bad you got to fight, because his spider sense would tell him it's not the real person along the way. So yeah, I mentioned Spider. Tom Holland's currently filming what is it, The Odyssey with Christopher Nolan right now. Have you seen the screenshots or set photos like that? Matt Damon, like mid-50s, looking ripped as hell as like the main character in that movie. So they're not filming Spider-Man right now. Tom Holland, we'll talk about him in a little bit here for Doomsday, kind of see where he is. But like I think once they start rolling cameras, then we'll be a little more solidified on the rumors, Mike, for this. I mentioned earlier I would need your expertise on Apple TV shows, and this is where it comes in with the series Champions, previously titled Young Avengers, has had Rachna Fruchbaum, who is the showrunner of Shrinking, as the writer for the show, and will probably be the showrunner for this.
Shrinking has been extremely successful for Apple TV. It's part of the 3 S's of quality that they have over there, where they say once you get your Apple Plus subscription, you got to watch Shrinking, Silo, and Severance. So yeah, that's a good get for them.
Yeah, and so that kind of makes me feel like they're obviously getting people with some pedigree for the show. It's going to be a little bit of a swing for Champions. I think it's got an uphill battle. But there's a lot of good powered people that have joined the Marvel ranks as like sidekicks and like side quote unquote children for Young Avengers / Champions to be in there. So we'll see this. See if it comes true. This is probably one of those San Diego Comic-Con announcements, Mike. What do you think? Since they'll probably give her some time to work on it and then say yay or nay come July.
That would be fun. I'd like that. Or if we don't get it by July, I feel like a lot of TV announcements make it to New York Comic-Con in November, so that could be possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Daredevil, we got some spoilers for Daredevil. Just type Daredevil, so the time code's here. Daredevil for season 2, Mike, which is currently filming alongside season 1, which you said last week is really weird for us to be seeing things for season 2 when season 1's still going on. So I've got some season 2 image spoilers. So if you don't want to know anything about Daredevil season 2, which is probably that Daredevil lives, because there's a season 2 coming, don't listen to this. Skip to the next time code below. If you want to, we're going to get into spoilers. First and foremost for these spoilers, it is high quality looks at Charlie Cox in his black suit for season 2, Mike. And I sent these to you because I was like, you've seen the rumors, you've already gotten this. So the first thing that we see is that's black with hints of red peeking through, and he's finally got his letters on the chest, Mike. The infamous double D's on his chest that people want to see so bad. I think it's a red suit spray painted black. Is that what you're getting out of this too? That he's just
it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to tell if it's supposed to be accidental or if this is something like that
stealth suit?
like makeshift made. I mean, it looks like when you have an action figure for a couple of years and the paint starts to rub off and you see the base underpaint of red.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you've been following the show, you know that there's a kind of anti-vigilante sentiment that's flowing through New York City. And you know, Daredevil's obviously caught up in that. So I wonder if maybe finally adding the D's, like the branding to his suit, is kind of a call of like, hey, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. No law is gonna get rid of me. I'm badass now. I'm in a black suit.
How did he see the letters to put on there, Mike?
He can see everything, and he also has he's got a guy. He's got a guy that makes these for him.
Yeah, I was gonna say the thing I was looking at, like, obviously, I was like, oh, is it black with hints of red or red with hints of black? Well, it's red because if you look at his, I'm looking at one here where he's got like his face up and it looks like Charlie Cox caught in a, you know, deer in headlights look. But on his gauntlets, you can see the red where like the black paint is just kind of covering the red there a little bit. And I love that the end of his little stick has like an orange tip to indicate that it's not a real stick with the string on the end. I like the black suit. The black suit is very iconic in the comic books later on. You know, when he comes like, you know, like I guess the leader of the hand in Hell's Kitchen, but it also gives him like a stealth approach, right? Like he's a little harder to see in the dark with the black suit. It looks cool. I like this Marvel Knights look to him. I'm excited to get more Daredevil. People seem to be I think that they said the score of this on review sites keeps going up after every episode. So glad to be back in Daredevil land for sure. I hope they find a way to bring him into the Avengers movies. I think that would be really cool to have him be at least in there for a little bit, not necessarily the main part, but a little bit.
Got to get his name on a chair first, Chris.
That's right. So we're going to get to the biggest news this week by a long shot, probably the month. We're at the end of March, and this is probably the biggest thing for March. And that is the Avengers Doomsday casting announcement video. I have a listener of the show, Jason, sent me over the X link when it started. And it was just a chair that said casting chair with Chris Hemsworth, and it said announcement, capital letters. No idea what this was at like 10 in the morning, like Eastern. It's like, what is going on? Chris Hemsworth in chair. Oh, are they announcing Thor 5? We talked about them announcing that November movie for Marvel last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh, they're finally going to do Chris Hemsworth. They're going to give us Thor 5. This is awesome. Did I notice it was a live video, not a photo? And someone was doing the math. Every 13 minutes, a new actor's chair appeared. So 5.5 hours. Every 13 minutes, a new chair. A little music played in between each one, and we got I think 26 actresses for Avengers Doomsday confirmed in this video. It's slowed down. This is actually like a slowed down version of the main teaser, which is like 1:30. So if you just want to watch it in 1:30, you can go watch that link in our show notes. Pretty cool. I believe they even said that this is like one of the highest interacted Marvel live video, anything else they've kind of done. But that's because after 5.5 hours, Mike, guess what? The news articles start pouring in, right? More and more articles, more and more clicks.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know what's more impressive about this whole thing. Just the sheer cast list for Doomsday, which I kind of thought this is what we would be seeing more closer to Secret Wars. I thought that's where we were going to kind of see the big list of people coming in. Or is just this marketing plan more impressive? Because it was genius. Like, all of these chairs are spaced out. Like, an entire work day was consumed. I'm sure productivity across the landscape dropped. If you had a second monitor like me, you were sitting pretty good. More monitors, the better. Just have it up and going. 13 minutes is like the perfect amount of time to not remember when the next one is going to happen. Because you're like, wait, when did the last one show up?
Well,
but if you have somebody like Chris hitting up the text messages, you can see the timestamps.
Yeah, that's right. I kept messaging Mike the second something happened so I could tell him. But I also had mine like in the background because I knew the music cues were in between each one. So I'm like, oh, the music's picking up again. I can go back over into that tab and take a look at it. So it was fun to do it. But like the thing with me, like they didn't announce it. Like it just showed up online. that morning. They're like, hey, hope you're watching. And it was like a slow build that was like a natural, like if as someone who's in marketing, this is what you want. You want natural, organic traffic to come to you. You don't want to pay to have people ads to come to it or announce it or promotions. People just kind of, flock to it. And that was awesome. And kudos for them. And we're going to go through this list here. And then I made a second list of people who weren't announced because I love SEO, Mike. As a marketing person, I want everybody's name in our article when we do this.
Well, Chris, I need you to do me a favor because
Yeah.
if we went bullet by bullet for these, I think we would be here for another 5 hours. So
we can
I'm
speed
curious,
run the first half. I think the first half are pretty self-explanatory. The back half is where I kind of was like, holy shit, they've actually pulled some surprises out for us.
Let's read these off in like chunks.
Okay, so let's do the first half. The people, one surprise in here, but all these people are pretty self-explanatory. Chris Hemsworth is Thor. A little bit of a surprise. I've forgotten about Thor since Love and Thunder, right? Vanessa Kirby is Invisible Woman. Anthony Mackie is Captain America. Sebastian Stan is Bucky. Letitia Wright is Black Panther. Paul Rudd is Ant-Man. We haven't seen him in a minute either, so glad he's coming back. Wyatt Russell is U.S. Agent. Tenoch Huerta Mejia, the Mejia is a new thing for him, as Namor. Forgot about Namor. Ebon Moss-Bachrach as The Thing. Simu Liu as Shang-Chi, and Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova. So giving us most of the Avengers and Thunderbolts here, if you will, right? Nothing surprising. We know these actors. We've seen them in movies recently. Like other than like Namor, simply because I forgot about Namor. That was about the only thing I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. And then the second half,
could be slight spoilers for Thunderbolts, knowing it. Well, at least these characters are going to survive, but we are treading in multiversal territory, so it's kind of really hard to know what is and isn't, out of all of these.
Yeah. And then we're gonna get into the batch number 2 real fast. And number 2 had one surprise for me, but not very surprising, and then one more character I just kind of forgotten about. And then we're gonna start with Kelsey Grammer as Beast. We saw him at the end of the Marvels, right? Not a surprise, but I'm like, oh yeah, he was in there. Good for Dr. Fraser Crane for joining the multiverse.
This was like the first. This was the first big one. This was kind of like when my eyebrows peaked. I was like, "Oh, we're going there." Okay.
Yeah.
You're not just in that post-credit scene anymore.
So they're pulling some post-credit scenes, stuff we've seen. Louis Pullman as the Sentry, obviously from Thunderbolts. Danny Ramirez as the Falcon. Joseph Quinn as the Human Torch. David Harbour as Red Guardian. Winston Duke as M'Baku. Hannah John Kamen as Ghost, and then Tom Hiddleston as Loki. I love the Loki show. Forgot about Loki, Mike. Like, that wasn't his fault. I just was like, oh yeah, we need Loki in here, right? Because of everything kind of going on.
That was the next big eyebrow peaking of, oh, we are getting into it now. We last left Loki holding the entire existence of everything together in the palm of his hands. So you don't just go back to that character lightly in a way.
Yeah, right.
So this is going to be a big deal.
Yeah, and I think he is the last character on here that we only saw in a series, right? I know he's been in movies, but he has not been seen since his series. Everybody else will have been in a movie by the time this comes out along the way. And then we get the most surprising announcements. Here's where it's gonna really be like, I was caps locks to Mike along the way. So the first one, not surprising, this kind of falls under Kelsey Grammer territory. Patrick Stewart as Professor X, who we did see in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, right? So no big deal. Ian McKellen as Magneto. Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler. That's the first one where I stopped and like, they're pulling some that's a deep cut. He hasn't been seen since X-Men 2, right? So I'm like, okay, that's great. Rebecca Romaine, how do you pronounce it, as Mystique. James Marsden as Cyclops. Channing Tatum as Gambit. And then obviously Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic, and capping all off, Robert Downey Jr. himself at the last chair as Dr. Doom, being there in person as well. The only person in person. 5, 6, 7, if you count Beast, 7 classic X-Men here, Mike, along the way. Channing Tatum's only been in Deadpool, but 6 of them have been in X-Men movies proper since the early 2000s. And this will probably be, and I'm going to make a guess here, their last outing as these X-Men as well.
You really got to clear the slate when it comes to X-Men. It's kind of funny because we saw at the end of Deadpool and Wolverine, the I hope you have your time of your life kind of credit scene where it was kind of like an emotional send-off to the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought maybe that was our indication of like, okay, we're waving goodbye to all of this stuff. But I mean, we have Channing Tatum coming back as a character he never got a chance to be. It seems like everyone, is getting one last outing. Because if X-Men is really going to be propping up this next phase of Marvel and like Disney's box office returns, you have to start fresh. You need to create a new nostalgia layer for the next generation, where they don't have to go back and watch 20 plus years of movies,
Well, I think that was the plan anyway. I don't think anyone was expecting them to bring back these deeper cuts. Professor X and Magneto, I kind of get, because they always return to these two characters, right? Like Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, iconic versions of these characters, other than X-Men 97. But I to bring back Nightcrawler, Mystique, Cyclops, who was killed in X-Men 3, right? Remember, Jean Grey like vaporized him at the beginning of that movie, so the actor could go be in Superman Returns, and that didn't really work out either. But like, this is some real deep stuff here. It's going to be a lot of nostalgia factors, a lot of throwbacks. Kevin Feige was a producer for X-Men, the first X-Men movies. I don't know if you knew that or not, or remember that. So like, this is like his thing. Like, is this going to be like one of his send-offs as well for like the stuff he's done over the past 30 years, it feels like. But like, I'm just surprised by this. And it kind of made me thinking, how do they tie this in the story? We've not really had the X-Men other than the end of the Marvels. So my idea here that I posited, and it's been over to you, and I've seen it pop up, other people have thought of this too, is that in the incursions, it's one Earth versus another Earth. Are the final two universes, rather than the ultimate universe and regular universe as it was in the comic books, the Marvel Cinematic Universe versus the un-X-Men classic universe, where you essentially get an X-Men versus Avengers style film, and whoever wins gets to keep their planet and the loser doesn't, kind of deal. Because obviously some of those characters, like Mystique, I think lost her powers. Cyclops was killed, so this is obviously a different X-Men universe. Gambit's there, but like, I'm very interested to see, is this the universe that Monica Rambeau ended up in with Beast, right? Like, is that this X-Men universe we're going to be seeing facing off versus the MCU?
Yeah, it really depends on how they explain it, right? Because we have a mishmash of X-Men characters. Because when you see like a James Marsden, you could say, oh, well, I guess since the multiverse and timelines are all malleable in a way, whatever power or magic that you're using to dive into them, like, oh, you could just jump into this Fox X-Men universe at any timeline that you want and pluck them, and grab them to do your bidding or whatever they're supposed to be doing in these movies. But then you come to a Channing Tatum and you're just like, well, you're kind of an outlier. Yeah. You're not really supposed to be like, and actually, if you take Channing Tatum kind of for his word, when he's revealed in that scene in Deadpool and Wolverine, he even acknowledges that like, he never even really existed in a weird way, which is kind of weird because he's like a fully fledged adult. So I don't even really know what we're supposed to take from that. And I know in Secret Wars you have all of these battle worlds, but yeah, this does kind of feel more like it's like a 1v1 in a way, like one world versus another world. I'm so curious what they're doing with this. I'd love to know. I'd love to take a peek at the script.
Yeah, and obviously, if that's the two universes, because that's how Secret Wars 2015 kicked off, was two worlds. The last two worlds were the 616 world versus the 1610 world, which is Ultimate versus regular Marvel Comics. But when you think about, also the Fantastic Four have a different universe, right? Because they're not in either one of these.
That's true.
So that's a third universe. And then wherever Doctor Doom comes from, I'm not going to assume he's the same Doom from Fantastic Four, or who will be in Fantastic Four. even in the comic books, the Doom who came from the main Marvel universe was the one who did, but like the comics aren't the same as the movies here. So whatever universe Doom comes from, so like we're gonna have several universes pop up here. And I was kind of writing this down as well. I was writing down like, oh, I see 4 teams forming, right? Like the Avengers team, the Thunderbolts, which will probably be part of Avengers, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four. And how does this all play together along the way? Because I was also looking at Marvel, we don't have any smart people other than Letitia Wright's Black Panther on the Marvel side anymore, right? We didn't get Spider-Man, and we didn't get the Hulk. We'll talk about that list here in a second, but like we didn't get the smart people in MCU. We only got like the Warriors, like the I guess the brunt force. So it's going to be interesting to see how the brunt force goes off against Professor Xavier, who goes off against the Fantastic Four, who are scientists. So I'm very excited about this list of characters and castings, and I'm honestly color me shocked, Mike, in some of these. I would never have bet for those X-Men people to be in this movie at the end of the day.
Exciting Wednesday.
Yeah, for 5.5 hours, it really paid off. The last thing here is that Marvel was I think it was Robert Downey Jr. said this is a great list of casts on like Instagram, and Marvel's like, oh, don't worry, we're not done yet. So there's probably like a second list that's probably Secret Wars related. You know how like Endgame and Infinity War had like 2 different team up lists, right? I think it's going to be like that to cover all the characters again. I'm not going to go through this list, Mike, but a couple big names that I just said here. All the Spider-Men were not involved in this list. Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange, Wong, who is literally the post-credits king of the MCU right now. No Elizabeth Olsen, no Mark Ruffalo, no Jeremy Renner. So no original Avengers except Thor, and is that it? Is Thor the only person in there? Yeah. Yeah. So Thor's the only original Avenger. We saw the concept art a while back, so there's no like young Avengers like Miss Marvel, Brie Larson, Captain Marvel's out there. No Nick Fury, no Guardians of the Galaxy. Hugh Jackman. We've had the rumor that Hugh Jackman was going to be part of this, so maybe he's a Secret Wars guy. The Rambeau mother-daughter combo, and some other original X-Men like Storm, Rogue, and Jean Grey, who I thought they would maybe pull in here as well. But like, I feel that was a pretty good announcement to begin with. Give it a month, maybe 2 months, maybe right after Thunderbolts, Mike, drops in May. Maybe they do the next announcement list towards the end of filming this movie. Is there anyone on this list that you're like, oh man, they should really bring them in, that you can think of that we haven't listed already?
I think just really curious how Doctor Strange fits into all of this.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that always knows all, seems to be 4 steps ahead, even though he might not be able to solve the problem being ahead.
Yeah. And in Secret Wars 2015, he was essentially the sheriff for Doctor Doom on his on the planet he made. So and Benedict Cumberbatch, I think, was like one of the actors who says, yeah, I'll be back for Secret Wars or Doomsday. So I'm excited for this next list of cast. This was a great, way to kind of get it here. And obviously, now I want to go turn on my old X-Men movies, Mike, and rewatch some of those dudes, because sometimes it's fun to sit in the back, or the past and watch it back when times were simpler. Well, that's the episode for this week. I honestly didn't think we'd make it the full hour, but that last list does push us through there at the end of the day. But Mike, if people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you at?
Oh, you can read my webcomics at liferewardsrisk.com and pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, make sure you survive this incoming storm that's coming your way. Where can they find you?
Yeah, out here in Tornado Alley, you can find me at Valdan, VALDAN, or Instagram Valdan87, or Video Game Systems of the same name. If people want to know more about the show, where we come back every week to do this, we should have actually, I thought about doing the meme, putting a Superhero Slate on the back of one of those chairs, where we've been confirmed to return in 2026, because obviously the more movies they make, the more we'll be back. Where can they get all them goodies at?
Oh, head on over to superheroslate.com. That is the home for all of our chairs. We are on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love sitting in chairs and listening to podcasts. We're just really a chair-based podcast in all sense of the form. I'm sitting in a chair right now. I can guarantee you Chris is sitting in a chair right now.
Damn,
so
you're good.
Yes, exactly. If you want some merch while you're sitting in a chair, head on over to superheroslate.com/store. If we want to know your thoughts from a chair, reach out to us. Let us know what you're watching.
We need guy or girls in chairs, just like Spider-Man.
Yes. What are you playing? What chairs are you sitting in? And we love our super fans. So if you want to be a super fan of the show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy from the comfort of your own chair, and we'll be here next week, folks.
That's right. We'll see you guys next week.